Hi, welcome to episode 20 of the Gentle Knitter podcast. My name is Nicole and I'm coming to you from Ottawa, Ontario. Today is Sunday, November 19th, and it's a beautiful snowy day. I don't know if you can tell, the light is kind of blowing out what you can see outside, but basically there's a bunch of vine branches there and they are covered in snow. We had an overnight snowfall, and so I woke up this morning and everything was covered in a beautiful blanket, and of course that makes my wintry loving heart very, very happy. um, yeah, I know it's a bit early, but really I love having a white December because for me that's when it really feels like Christmas. So I'm hoping that it'll stay. I don't know if it will, but at least it's giving me a little bit of a taste of what's to come and putting me in a very festive mood. So hello, it's been a little while and I have so much to catch up with you today. I will talk a little bit, not too much, but just because there's been so many recaps already, but I'll talk a little bit about my time at Rhinebeck. And I will also tell you about a weekend that I went to that's put on by the ladies who organize the Twist Festival. They also do they do it twice a year, but they do a retreat in Mont Tremblant. And so I was invited to attend and do a little bit of teaching, which was a first for me, and it was really fun and a little stressful, I won't lie, but I really enjoyed it, and my students were lovely, and so I will tell you all about that later. And I've been doing a lot of knitting, and it's very, oh, it's so good. I'm in my knitting groove again, and it feels really good. So I will tell you about some finished objects, and I will talk about some upcoming projects and works in progress, and bit of stash acquisition. Not as much as you might think. I actually recently went through all of my stash and reorganized everything. And you guys, I have so much yarn. It's crazy. And so it's really reaffirmed my desire to knit sweaters for myself, for my husband, garments, shawls, etc., but also to maybe slow down on the yarn acquisition. But you know, when you go to Rhinebeck, you have to buy a little bit at least to bring back a few yarny souvenirs. So I will talk about that. So let's dive right in. Why don't I talk about my elephant in the room, my finished sweater. This is the Woodfords from Elizabeth Doherty, and Elizabeth is an incredible designer, and she really knows how to design sweaters that fit really well, that are flattering, and that are just really beautiful with beautiful design details, and this one is no exception. I will stand up, but I'm actually surrounded by stuff right now, and so it might be a little tricky for me to maneuver, but I just wanted to at least give you an impression of this beautiful detail here that happens. So it's a drop shoulder sleeve, and then I've made it so that it goes just past my hip, and it kind of defines the back. And then the back, I'm gonna try and show you, has this beautiful line running along the shoulders. And then the collar, I talked a little bit about my trial and error with that. I think I told you all about it last time, so I don't need to go through that again, but basically it's done. It fits beautifully. I love the color. It's very, it's very neutral, but it goes with so many things, and the yarn is absolutely lovely. It's very warm. So I had to look up the yarn. It's Bare Naked Wools, which is a yarn that is has been designed, I guess, by Anne Hansen, and this weight is the sport weight. It's the confection blend, which is 100% Corriedale, and the color of this one is nougat. So it's kind of a warm gray, pale gray. And it's lovely. Now, it has pilled a bit, but they're the kinds of pills that are really easy to pick off, and I have a feeling that once it's gone through its initial shedding, it will stop pilling, because really it's just been a few pills here and there in the high friction areas, and everywhere else it looks really beautiful. And like I said, I've been picking off the pills as I see them, and they don't seem to be coming back. And also the nice thing with this kind of yarn is that, so yeah, you can see that it has pilled quite a bit, but with this type of yarn, because it's heathered, it's a bit harder to see the pills, and it's also kind of a fuzzy yarn, so that kind of creates an effect that sort of masks the pills. It's not like a really shiny, smooth yarn where the pills really stand out. So all in all, I am incredibly happy with it. I would actually love to knit another one. The design, Woodford's, is, like I said, it's by Elizabeth Doherty, but the pattern is available through Brooklyn Tweed. And it was originally designed for a fingering weight yarn, but as I mentioned, this is sport weight, although I did get gauge very easily, so it might be a slightly thicker version, but it came, like, it turned out exactly the size that I was hoping for. So that feels like a big win, because it's been a while since I've had a successful sweater project, and you know, had some not as fun sample knitting experiences this summer, just because of my own, you know, not really wanting to do it anymore. And so I was kind of pushing through projects that my heart just wasn't in it. So it just feels so good to be back in a place with my knitting where it's just pure joy. And I have a few other things that I have either finished or at least have started, and they are also bringing me an enormous amount of pleasure. So this is my first finished object. I have one more, and where did I put them? Let me get back to you. So my next finished object, they are socks that I've shown you before in progress. I kept them in my Ambitalia bento bag with my, oh no, Natalia, I'm not going to get her last name. I spoke about her last time, and I think I didn't even know her name last time. Way to go, Nicole. But she's an artist that does these beautiful little pins. This one is like a little, kind of a little Scandinavian house. I love her work. I want to get some of her posters to put in my house. She always has kind of like wintry themes, and anyway, I really love her work. So the socks are just very plain vanilla socks. I haven't blocked them yet, so you can kind of see that they are still a little wrinkly from just from knitting them on DPNs. I did my usual garter stitch tab along my heels. I always do that, and I really love doing it. I've explained it a couple of times on the podcast, but let me just tell you again for those who may not have seen a previous episode. Basically what I do is when I knit my heel flap, I always do the first and last 3 stitches in garter. So I'm knitting those 3 stitches, whether I'm on the right side or the wrong side. And it creates a little a little garter edge, and then it becomes incredibly easy to pick up stitches to knit the foot because you've got those garter bumps that you can just literally slip your needle through, and it's such a great way to pick up the stitches. And also I just like the little detail. When I was at the Twist Festival, I was working on these, and somebody was like, what is that heel? Like, that's such an interesting, different heel. And I said, oh, it's not anything special. I just put, garter on the edges of my heel flap. And everybody was like, oh my God, that's so revolutionary. But, it's not. It's just a really fun little easy way to pick up the gusset for your socks. The yarn is a Sweet Georgia fibers, or Sweet Georgia, and the color is linen. So I really love them. I think they're the kind of color that I wear a lot. So I think I'll really enjoy wearing these. They're very soft. I knit them really at a super tight gauge. I basically knit them on, is it size zeros or double zeros? They're 2mm needles, so whatever that is in the US size. But basically, they're hopefully going to wear well, even though they are superwash, just given the very tight gauge. I knit them on these carbons, which I really enjoy for sock knitting. However, they are just starting to fall apart, and I don't feel like I've knit with them that much, but I don't know if you can see here, but the tip has fallen off on 2 of my needles. So I had a set of 5, and actually when I was at Twist, one of them, the tip fell off, so I threw it away, and I thought, okay, I'll just knit with 4. And then as I was working on them, then another tip fell off. So I ended up I finished them on these, but I basically would just have to always turn my needle, so I would always be working with the point. And this is kind of like the end of the carbon, the shaft of the needle. And so now these are kind of done, I guess. I will keep these 3. They're still working. The tips are not feeling loose, but I was very sad. They're not cheap, and all my other needles, my bamboo ones, of course, they can break fairly easily, but still, this is a bit of a bummer. Anyway, I thought I would mention it just in case that's happened to somebody else. I would be curious to find out. I'm a little hesitant to buy more of these, but I do like them a lot. I love working with them. They feel nice, and the tip is, fairly pointy. And anyway, I do knit socks often in Magic Loop, so it's okay. But I was a little bummed. Okay, so that is my other finished object. I have started several projects, and maybe I will talk about another pair of socks. And these are actually when I cleaned out my my stash, I found a bag full of works in progress, and some of them are probably like 20 years old. And so I thought, well, maybe I should pick at least one of these projects and try and finish it. So this sock it'll be very difficult for you to see, but it is, oh boy. The yarn is there you go, is a very dark black with a very dark teal. There, you can sort of see it's coming out a bit navy, but it is more of a teal color, or a dark teal. And the yarn is, I don't know. The pattern, I don't know. This is, like I said, very old work in progress. I haven't even done my garter stitch heels, so I know that this, because I have been doing those for quite a long time, these are really old. But the yarn is really nice, and so I'm going to finish them. I basically only have the toe left on these, and the pattern is pretty simple. It's just basically ribbing that gets shifted over, like broken rib. So I'll be able to just count how many stitches are on here and knit up the second sock pretty easily. I've got lots and lots of yarn left. I think this might be Lorna's Laces. Either that or Dream in Color. It might be Dream in Color. Anyway, so we'll get those finished. I was holding those in a really pretty bag from Tiny Happy. Melissa made this bag, and I've had it for, it's one of my first project bags. It's got little embroidered chamomile flowers on the bag. It's like a beautiful gray linen with a little polka dot fabric inside. It's really charming, as is everything that Melissa makes. She's a great maker. I've bought a lot of stuff from her over the years, and she's become quite a knitter now, so that's kind of nice. Anyway, she actually, I think she just recently put some bags in her shop that were really more intended to be knitting bags, so I don't know if they're still there, but go check it out, Tiny Happy on Etsy. So anyway, those are some socks. I also started making some mitts, like fingerless gloves, or mitts I should say. Excuse me. I saw this pattern like many months ago. Somebody, I think actually on Ravelry, PM'd me and said, have you seen these mitts? Because when I saw this pattern, it made me think of you. And when I saw it, I was like, oh, I can see why. And then just recently, I was looking on Instagram, and somebody had posted like they were knitting these, and it reminded me that I really love them, and I really wanted to make a pair for myself. So I started a pair for myself, and then again I was on Instagram and I saw that Katie Greenbeans, Katie who wrote the book, which I have here, the Lighter Than My Shadow book that I talked about in my last episode. She had posted a photo of her mitts in progress, and they were almost identical to mine, and I just thought that was so funny because because it seems like everybody is making them. And then last night I got a text from Sarah from the Fiber Trek podcast, and she said, have you ever seen this pattern? Do you know about it? And I said, and I just sent her a picture of this because that was exactly what I was working on when she texted me. So it seems like everybody, sort of has got my number and realizes that these were basically designed for me. These are the Underwing mitts, and they are glorious. They are so pretty and super witchy. I really love them. So it's a beautiful moth pattern, and then there's also the moon, the phases of the moon here. And I haven't finished, I haven't done the thumb yet, but I basically finished the one yesterday. I'll practically knit them in a day, and I adore them. They're not blocked yet. I did give it a quick steam with the iron just so that it would smooth out the stitches a little bit. But basically, this is the left hand, and so here they are, or here it is, I guess. The back is the continuation of the moon, and then just this really pretty circular pattern. And they are really, really fun to knit. I started them over like 3 times because I started off with the needle size that was recommended, and I believe it was 2.75 millimeter. And I got maybe up to here, and they were really wide. And I didn't do a gauge swatch because I figured I'm just going to get going and that'll be my gauge swatch. And even, I didn't even measure the gauge at the point where I thought they were too wide. I just figured, no, I just don't like the way they look. They're just too wide. The stitches looked a little bit loose. So I went down to 2.5 millimeter. And again, they were just too big and loosey-goosey. So I went down to 2.25, and that was the winner. The yarn I used is a mix of like Shetland 2-ply yarn, so the typical Shetland colorwork yarn. It's a mix of, so this is the kind of the main color is a Jamieson and Smith. I don't have the color band. These are all like leftovers that I had in my bag. And it's getting really blown out, but it's like a pretty, just a beige with like a bit of a, it's a little bit marled. It's pretty subtle. And then the other yarns, oh, I'm missing the gray. No. Basically, they are caked up yarns. The gray one is the same. That I bought from, oh dear, what's her name? Wilma Malcolmson. I talked about her, I've talked about her before. She is a Shetland designer, and she does really, like, to me, the most beautiful color work designs. She doesn't really put out patterns. She designs garments that she sells on her website and in her shop, and I believe she also designs for puts out designs for garments, but not for knitting patterns. I wish she would put out some knitting patterns. Although I think there is one pattern in the last issue of Shetland magazine that is designed by her, and maybe is it her daughter? I'm not quite sure. Anyway, she's a great designer. We visited her studio when I was in Shetland, and she had packs of yarns that she had kind of put together. They were, I guess, maybe mill ends or leftover yarns that that she had, like just these bags of like 12 balls of yarns that all kind of go really well together. And these were 2 of those, and they're really beautiful. This one is kind of a brick red with some gray and a bit of gold, and then this is more of a salmony pink. It's kind of being blown out a little bit, but it's kind of a warm salmon. So these are the colors I used for the just as little details on the wings. The pattern itself only calls for color in the bottom, but I actually wanted to add just a little extra, so I put some color here also, and these are done in duplicate stitch. So you basically knit those sections in the white or in the cream, and then after that you go with a darning needle and just basically stitch over those stitches to create the little bits of color. I could have done those colors in stranded, but that would have meant holding 3 colors and having to strand all of those extra colors in the back just for these little blips here, and I didn't think that was worth it. So I just basically did what the pattern called for, and it was really quick and easy to do. So I would recommend that again when you just want that extra little pop of color, to go ahead and do that. It was really, really easy. So anyway, I'm obsessed with these. I adore them. It's maybe one of the favorite things I've knit in a very long time. They're just so beautiful and so me. I actually, it's a bit of a shame because I don't wear fingerless mitts that often, but maybe I just need to get into that habit, because I just really love them. I actually considered turning them into full mitts, but the placement of the butterfly, if I had continued, I would have had to maybe, like work the design to place the butterfly a bit higher. And I just thought the design was so beautifully done the way it was that I just figured out I'm just going to knit them as is, and I love them. So anyway, Underwing mitts. I'll put the name of the designer down here, but they are wonderful. And I was holding these in my Fringe Association bag, which I've talked about before. Before I go on, just because I have my bag out, I will show you one of the things I bought at Rhinebeck. I actually didn't buy it at Rhinebeck itself. I bought it at the Needles Up event, which was an event organized by Sue of the Legacy Knits podcast and the Andre Sue Knits. So Andrea from that podcast organized this really wonderful event that was held in, it was a conference room off of an inn in right downtown in Rhinebeck. So it was a fairly small room, and it didn't have a ton of vendors. I think there was 1, 2, 3, 4, like 6 vendors in total. And it was a really charming event. It was a lot of fun. It was so well organized. Even though it's a very small room and it was a fairly popular event, the way they had it organized is you would line up and they would let, I think like 20 or 25 people in, and then as people were leaving, they would let more people in. And so, you did have to wait to get in, but I didn't mind. It was such a beautiful day, and there was like lots of people, everybody was chatting and, asking, oh, what are you wearing? And then people came up who watch the podcast, and I saw and met with podcasters that I watch. And so it was a lot of fun, and the line went by pretty fast. And anyway, all that I will get into that a little bit later, talking about Rhinebeck, but I just wanted to show you this awesome pin that I bought. Look at that. For those of you who may not know, this is Elizabeth Zimmerman, and Elizabeth Zimmerman is a very famous knitwear designer. I actually have, I don't have it here. I have several of her DVDs. She did a bunch of different DVDs that show knitting techniques. She had a show, I believe, on PBS. I think it was called Knitting Around. Anyway, she published many books. She self-published. She started Schoolhouse Press, and she was really a very influential and revolutionary force in the knitting world, because she basically, she would have said invented, but she invented these really wonderful techniques. If you do I-cord, that is she made that very popular, and it's called I-cord because she called it idiot cord because it's so easy to do. She had a very awesome sense of humor. If you read her knitting books, they are written in a very conversational style. She's really funny, really witty. I adore Elizabeth Zimmerman. She also developed a method for figuring out, basically designing your own sweater based on math. So it's all percentages and based on your swatch. So you could basically take any yarn that you want, knit a swatch, and then figure out what your gauge is, and then basically gives you a really easy mathematical equation or mathematical formula to design your own sweater. And at first I was quite intimidated by her designs. I'm terrible at math, so I'm always like, oh, math. But I've knit several sweaters based on her method, and they always turn out really lovely. So anyway, Amy Beth from the Fat Squirrel Speaks podcast, which is one of my favorite podcasts, she was vending at the at Needles Up, and she had these pins made, and I was so excited because I, like I said, love Elizabeth Zimmerman, and just thought that, you know, who would be better to decorate my knitting bag than Easy, the queen of knitting. My my virtual grandmother, I often put on her DVD just to so she can keep me company, because she's just delightful. Anyway, so that was one of the things I bought at Rhinebeck, but I will talk about more of that later. Then the last work in progress that I have is another project that was inspired by someone who posted something on Instagram. So Lee Miller, who is now quietly on Instagram. Lee is a friend of mine. She lives not too far from Ottawa, and it's been a little bit of time since we've seen each other. Lee will have to make plans to get together again soon. But she just posted a finished sweater, and I was obsessed. It is so gorgeous. It's the Gameldags by Helen Magnuson. Let me Helen Magnuson. And I was looking for, you know, what was going to be my next sweater project. I actually swatched for a bunch of different things, and just wasn't really finding what I wanted to make until I saw Lee's sweater and thought, that's what I want to make. And so I started it, basically I'm using the sleeve as a swatch. So I started the sleeve, and I have gauge, so I'm really happy. And this is the beginnings of it. So for those of you who don't like beige, I'm sorry, because this is a bit of a theme. But so the main color of the sweater is kind of like this oatmeal-y color, and then I'll have a creamy color, a dark charcoal gray, a medium charcoal gray, and then this kind of goldy yellow color. And the yoke calls for even more colors, so it'll basically be a blend of grays, creams, and that gold color. And I will show you, sorry for the crinkling, I'm going to knit the cardigan. So I'm going to make like this version. And so I've just started the sleeve, but once both sleeves are done, then I will work on the yoke. And it is a steeked sweater, and it's knit in Let Lopi, so the Aran Weight Lopi yarn, which I have tons of in my stash. So basically this was all stash diving. It was fun to kind of go in. I can show you the colors excuse me, that I'm using. Got them all in my bag here, which is another Rhinebeck acquisition, which I will talk about in a sec. Oh, I'm missing the cream color. There it is. So yeah, so here are the colors that I'm using. The main body, some of the designs, and the cream will be kind of the background of the yoke pattern. So this yarn I actually used in my the Lopi sweater that I did last year. Why can't I remember? Put it down here. Anyway, this is leftover. So yeah, I'm really excited about this one, and I think it's going to be such a beautiful sweater. I have some gorgeous buttons that are just over there. Let me get them. Oh no, these are not, I thought these were those buttons. The buttons I have, those are different ones. that I want to use are bone, like they're antler buttons. So I think that will be a very lovely, very rustic winter cardigan. Oh, and the bag that I'm holding all this in is a gorgeous bag by Matterroot. So she was vending at Rhinebeck, and I really like, it was one of the booths that I went to first. I basically went on the Saturday because I just did not want to miss out, and I'm glad I did because I went by again on Sunday and she was really cleaned out. So this is a trundle bag, and right now it's full of, like, there's probably like 8 or 9 skeins of let lopi, so it does hold quite a lot. And basically it doesn't have a zipper, it just has a little clip, and you can hold, you can carry it. You could also, it's sort of like if you ever, if some of you have gone kayaking or canoe camping, it's like a wet bag, or a dry bag, I should say. So you can, roll it down and then close it. And I really love it. It's the Pussy Willow pattern. And again, I was watching Fiber Trek, Sarah's latest episode, and she just bought the same bag. So definitely we are on the same wavelength, her and I. We are basically knitting sisters. So that is it for works in progress. I have a few other sweaters that I have already started in my mind, but I haven't cast on yet or swatched. But I thought I would just mention quickly that because I'm just on a roll and because I am making all of the things for myself, I wanted to talk about the branches and buds pullover, which so many people have made, and I am just in love with this pattern. I think I have some yarn in my stash. It calls for chickadee, so I will have to see if I have something that is suitable for that, because I would like to not buy new yarn, but just use what I already have. But I'm really hoping to do a kind of basically the same colors. Gray body with a white or creamy or pale gray branches, and then look at my scraps to make the little buds, because I think they are very charming. That is a Carrie Bostic Hogue pattern, which is in issue number 1 of Making Magazine. And that sweater, it was my favorite pattern out of this book, and I just haven't gotten it out of my mind since. So I definitely hope to cast that on very soon. The other thing is I hardly have any pullovers. I haven't knit a pullover in years, and I just think it would be a nice addition to my stash. The other sweater I want to knit is from this gorgeous book, again by Elizabeth Doherty. She is the one who designed this sweater, and this is such an amazing book. So it is a book of designs of top-down sweaters, but she has basically devised a really amazing way of doing a set-in sleeve with a top-down method. And I have talked about it before. I don't like doing raglan sleeves. They just don't suit me. They don't fit properly. If it's a pullover, yes, but with a cardigan, it tends to always fall off my shoulders, and set-in sleeves just fit a lot better. And this is kind of a seamless design, a top-down, but with a much better fit. And the one thing about Elizabeth is, I talked about it earlier, but her sense of design, she comes from a tailoring design background, and she really just has such a knack for really thinking about how bodies are made, and how to work with knitted fabric to really fit those bodies. And I actually got a chance to stay with Elizabeth. We had met 2 or 3 years ago at Rhinebeck and had kind of hung out quite a bit that year, and then last year also. And so this year we decided we would she rented a house, and I was lucky enough to nab a spot, and was staying with her and her friend Lori and Dagmar. And the four of us just had this amazing time. The house we were staying in was so beautiful. And Elizabeth is just such a lovely person, but also, yeah, so talented. And anyway, I was really happy that I finished this sweater in time for Rhinebeck to wear it and to show it off to Elizabeth. And that was a lot of fun. But anyway, there are a ton of sweaters in here I want to make. And one of the designs that I'm particularly looking at is one that she had with her when I was at Rhinebeck. She had just come from, she had done some classes and some trunk shows, and so she had basically all of her garments there at the house, and so we had a bit of a trying on party. And her designs, like, what's amazing is that a lot of her samples were, they were smaller than my body size, but somehow things still looked really good. I don't know, the way they're shaped, they look good on all different body types. And that's such a difficult feat, and she really pulls it off. I mean, I love this pretty little cardigan, I think, on top of a dress. That would just be so beautiful. The one that I'm really interested in is this one, the copper plate. And she had a sample that it's actually a longer version with side pockets, and and she has a modification for this pattern that you can buy to do that. And that's the one that I'm really interested in making. I tried it on and it fit me so beautifully. It's got some really beautiful shaping. These lines, they just sit on the body so well. And yeah, and here you can see that beautiful shoulder that is just so it just fits so beautifully in it. It's so neat. It's really a great method. So anyway, I highly recommend this book. Elizabeth generously gave me a copy of her book. I haven't read through it yet, but I plan on doing that. Just the photography, everything is so beautiful. The garments are all made out of Quince & Company yarns, so they all kind of have similar colors, and it's a really lovely book. So highly recommend that. So those are some of the knitting dreams that I have, the things that I want to make. I'm going to take a little pause and get back to you, and I'll talk a little more about Rhinebeck and the things that I got there. So a little bit more about Rhinebeck. Basically, it was a great time. It was the best Rhinebeck that I've had since going. I don't know why. I think I just paced myself really well this time. And first of all, I decided to drive up to Rhinebeck on the Thursday, which was a really nice decision. I'm glad, and I would do that again. Basically, I met up with Elizabeth, Lori, and Dagmar at the house that Elizabeth had rented, which was just outside of Rhinebeck. On the Thursday evening, we sat around and drank wine and ate cheese and knit and just kind of got to know each other. And I mean, I knew Elizabeth, but I got to know her lovely friends. And yeah, it was super relaxed, and it just felt like such a nice way to start the weekend. And then on Friday, I finally got a chance to visit Rhinebeck itself. Even though I'd been 3 times before, I had never really visited the town of Rhinebeck. I'd always basically just gotten there, and it's festival craziness. And so this time we really had time to walk around and go into some of the really lovely little shops that are in Rhinebeck. We ate some great food, and it was really, really lovely. And the weather was incredible. We just had such a nice time. On the Friday afternoon, like I mentioned, I went to the Needles Up event, which was a lot of fun. And then after that, we had dinner and then went to the Indie Untangled event. Now, you've probably heard a lot of other people talk about this event, and they probably, well, I'm going to say exactly the same thing that everybody else said. Amazing vendors, really great selection of vendors, but it was bananas. It was bananas. I didn't buy a thing because it was impossible. It was just, there were so many people. And it's a shame because it, like I said, the vendors are beautiful. The stuff they have was beautiful. Everybody is super excited. It's the beginning of Rhinebeck, but I don't know if I would go again. I'm hoping, fingers crossed, maybe they will pick a new venue. I'm not sure. Maybe it's difficult to find large venues that can hold that many people and that much stuff. But I hardly looked at anything. I really, really wanted to go to the Tuscan Knits booth because I wanted to meet Maria and see her gorgeous yarn. I totally missed it. I did end up going to the Bare Naked Wools booth because I had this sweater on me, which was, I was dying. It was so hot in there. But I really wanted to wear it and show it to Anne because, you know, it's made out of her yarn, and I thought she might get a kick out of seeing it. And so I was able to do that, and that was lovely. But yeah, I just, you know, I don't love crowds to begin with, but this, oh, sorry, I'm not sure what happened there. I touched my touchpad and it stopped the video. I was saying I don't love crowds, but this was beyond that. It was just, I think even if you were really a people person and you didn't mind getting shoved and pushed, and it was still like beyond that. It was crazy. Anyway, so all that to say, I didn't love Indie Untangled, but I mean, it's just a victim of its own success. It's just such an awesome event, and you know, people are planning now to come early enough to attend it. So you've got basically like everybody who's going to Rhinebeck also going to this event, and it's such a small place, and yeah, didn't enjoy that. But like I said, hopefully next year maybe they can find a bigger event space and it can continue, because I think it is a great event. Anyway, so we didn't stay very long. We kind of hightailed it out of there. On the Saturday, we got up fairly early and got to the fairgrounds, the Dutchess County Fairgrounds. And basically the Saturday was all about people, and I barely did any shopping. I just bought that Madder Root bag that I showed you. But oh, I had such a great time meeting so many viewers, and so many people came up to me and hugged me and just said so many nice things, and it was wonderful to put faces to a lot of people who, you know, leave comments and that kind of thing. Anyway, the podcasters meetup blew my mind. There were so many people, and everybody was just so lovely. And I met so many of you, and I really can't, I would, if I tried to enumerate who I met and thank everybody who came up and people had gifts for me and all that, I would probably forget somebody, and I don't want to do that. So I'm just going to say one general thank you to everybody who came to say hello. It meant so much to me. It really, you know, making this podcast is a lot of fun. I really love doing it. but that's like, that's the cherry on the cake. That is the real, I don't know, I don't want to say payoff, because it's not like that. It's just that it's just so heartwarming to connect with you out there in a real way, because when it's the podcast, I'm talking to basically my laptop. So to actually, meet the people who are watching the podcast means a lot. Anyway, I don't want to go on and on. I'm gushing, but it was really lovely to meet all of you. So thank you. So yeah, so Saturday was all about hanging out. And eating cider donuts, and that was great. Saturday night, we went out for an incredible meal in Kingston at a restaurant called Duo. Oh, I had the best meal I've had in so long, and it was just lovely. Sunday was a more relaxed day at Rhinebeck, so I did a bit more shopping, not a ton, but I bought a few things, and so I'll show you those, and then I will move on. So I bought, let's see, what should I talk about first? I wanted to get a sweater's worth of yarn, and I knew I wanted to get something sheepy, woolly, tweedy, the usual for me. And so I ended up deciding to get a sweater's quantity of Flywheel by Harrisville Tweed, or Harrisville, and it is a tweed. The yarn is not, I fear that you're not seeing the glory of this yarn, and you are not. Oh, I wish it would translate. So it's a gray, but it has a lot of flecks of blue and red and gold, and it's really, 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 really beautiful. No, it's not translating it. It's just reading. Okay, there you can see maybe a little bit. It is so rich. It looks really flat on the camera, but it's really, really beautiful. So this is the Flywheel, I believe, is a sport or DK. Can't remember now. I bought enough for a sweater. I think I bought 12 or 14 skeins. And I'm not sure what I'm going to make. I did swatch a few designs, and I haven't found it yet, but probably something cable-y. I would like to have, fairly, because it's a finer yarn, it'll create a relatively light garment, but it would be nice to have something that is kind of got rich cables. So I think that would be the plan for it. So anyway, that was one of my purchases. Another thing I bought was some spinning fiber. So I bought I guess you call this a bat of fiber from Loop, and it is all predictably grays, but with also a bit of a mauve stripe, and it's super duper soft. It's a blend of something soft. Sorry, I'm not good at this, am I, guys? Anyway, I'm spinning it on my Moosey, which is my favorite spindle, one that I bought at Rhinebeck. Was it last year? I think so. It's made with moose antler, and anyway, I'm trying to spin it a bit thicker than I normally spin. It's probably, once it's plied up, I think I will probably get a worsted weight. It's super easy to spin. It's a complete joy to spin. So anyway, I've got quite a lot of that. Here's some that I've already spun and taken off the spindle. Really loving that. So this was some of the fiber I bought. I also bought, I forgot to mention, some fiber that I bought at the Needles Up event. This is really different for me, but I loved these colors. So this is from Classy Squid Fiber Company, and it's 100% Shetland, and I love spinning Shetland, and I love the texture of this fiber. And I really love the colors. It's a very, very autumnal mix. Actually, the colorway is called Leaf Fall, and I think that's perfect for this colorway. There's also some purple. I love this gold here, and the dark maroon, and almost like some blacks and browns. I love this. I'm not sure. It might be one of those yarns that I spin and love every minute of spinning, and then the resulting yarn might be something that I will either knit something for someone else, or, maybe myself. Maybe I could branch out a little bit and be a little wild. But I couldn't resist. Couldn't resist that. But to kind of balance that braid of yarn, crazy yarn out, I also bought some bats from her, so from Classy Swid Fiber Co. And sorry for the crinkling, but let me take one out. I bought two, and it is a blend that she's calling, or maybe the colorway is called Magnolia. And it is a blend of kid mohair, mulberry silk, flax, and cotton neps. And it's really beautiful. It's very, very silvery, but with darker gray bits. And I love those little cotton neps. It kind of looks to me like a snowstorm. And I think this will also be really, really fun to spin. And I've never spun with mohair before, so I'm kind of curious to try that out. And I think this would make like really dreamy mittens, like a really warm, fuzzy mitts for those minus 30 days. And just the colorway to me is like so perfect for that. So anyway, so that was the other spinning fiber that I bought. And then the last thing I bought, so like I said, not a ton of yarn. I bought some yarn, and sorry, my husband, he keeps doing this every time I record. He was walking by and caught my eye there. So I bought enough to make a shawl, and this is Green Mountain Spinnery, and it's a sock yarn actually. So it's Sock Art Lana. It's 100% fine wool. It doesn't say that it's superwash, and it doesn't feel superwash, so I'm hoping it isn't, but if it is, that's fine. I feel like I asked them, and I think they said it wasn't. The colorway is called Dungarees, and it is like that perfect faded jeans. Like, when you have extremely faded jeans, it's showing up grayish, but it's more of a blue, and it's got kind of a slight variegation in the color, and I also love the way it was spun. It's got a very kind of springy spin, and I don't know, I think it's really beautiful, and it's 400 yards for each, so 800 yards. I can make a beautiful, big, generous shawl. And so there it's showing up a bit more blue. I think it'll suit me really well. I always like blue. So anyway, so that is it for Rhinebeck. I had a great time. The Sunday, like I said, we did a bit more shopping, and I left early afternoon. I was exhausted. Being an introvert among so many people, and staying with sharing a house with 3 other ladies, and just being always in conversations, and just the stimuli of so much going on around me. I was completely exhausted by Sunday afternoon, and I drove back kind of like I wasn't, I had fully caffeinated myself, so I was not sleepy at all, but I was just a bit of a zombie. and basically just listened to like very calming music and just was very quiet for 7 hours. So that was good. But I had a great time, and I can't wait to go back. I really, if you get a chance to go to Rhinebeck at least once, it's quite an experience. It is crazy. There are too many people. It is exhausting, but it's a lot of fun, and there's so many beautiful things to look at. And the people, looking at everybody decked out in their finest. It was quite warm, like I said, so everybody was just sweating. You know, they had piled on the knitwear, but my goodness, we were all just puddles by the end of the day. But anyway, it was a lot of fun. I feel like this is going on and on. I did want to tell you about the retreat that I went to. I might save that for next time, just because I feel like this is going to be a really long episode. I also have some giveaway stuff that I want to address. So I think I will aim to record again very soon so that I can catch up on all of those things with you and announce. Like I said, I have several giveaways. Quickly, I will mention that I've got some, where is it? Oh, here it is. Sorry, I've got some blacker yarn to give away, the beautiful brushwork yarn, which is a woolen spun yarn that they put out for their 12th birthday. And it is just really, really gorgeous. It's 80% wool and 20 alpaca, and I'll tell you more about that blend next time, but it's quite lovely, and I have several balls to give away, so that is one of the giveaways. I also have some beautiful, beautiful yarn from Oyster and Pearls. This is naturally dyed yarn and non-superwash. I believe it's merino. Yeah, and it's really, really, really beautiful yarn. So I want to give this away, and I also have some tuku wool that Claire from the Woolly Thistle sent me that I want to give away. I've got some gorgeous Fiber Company, and it's their Meadow Blend, which they kindly sent for a giveaway, so I want to give that away. There's one other thing. Oh yes, I got some really gorgeous yarn from Riverside Studios, from Catherine. She gave me some gorgeous BFL that is non-superwash in a colorway called Slate, and it's like a beautiful blue, gray, brown mix that is stunning. So I will show that to you next time. Anyway, in the meantime, thank you for watching. Thank you for being there and for being such lovely viewers and for giving me so much. It really, really warms my heart. Anyway, I hope you're well, and we'll talk to you very soon, I hope. All right, bye-bye.